That's been a path of just reclaiming who am I? And I think we all have this question of like, who am I? Where am I going?
To create an experience that was so deeply vivid, and I was confronted by so many narratives, and to that point of being like, can you surrender this?
The witnessing of you stepping into your voice and sharing that with us. And as soon as the lights went off and you sat in that space in the dark and I opened my eyes and I watched you and I was like, oh, we're going into ceremony.
Do you hear that sound? What is, am I in the jungle? Is that a jaguar? Like, she brought the jungle, or we're in the jungle. I don't know what's going on. I told him after we got done, I was like, I feel like I was in a Yahe ceremony.
It's really the individual's journey to then create their own essence and their own story. It's not my job to heal. My job is to create a space, give people opportunity to actually explore their own healing.
I'm acknowledging within myself the most powerful thing we can share is our voice. Aloha, and welcome to another episode of the Embracing Human podcast.
Before we begin the next episode, I'd like to take a quick moment to ask for your support in helping us grow our podcast.
Take a moment to like, subscribe, or follow on whatever platform you're watching this on.
Your engagement helps us to grow our platform, as well as allows us to invite even more interesting interviews in the future. I hope you enjoy the following episode and wish that you gain insight, clarity, or knowledge about what it means for you to embrace being human. Welcome to another episode of the Embracing Human podcast. I am here for a very special interview with my brother Leo and our guest today, Auntie Whaia, who I met in a very interesting series of events, which we'll get to at some point, I'm sure. From the moment I met this woman, I just felt very called to not only be in her presence, but to continue conversation. And that led to a continuing conversation that evening, and then we ended up here on this podcast platform. So I don't even know where to start as an introduction, but I promise you, if you provide us your intention in this episode, you will be blown away. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Auntie Whaia.
Kia ora. Ngā mihi aroha, and thank you for inviting me into your space, into your whare. And I'd just like to acknowledge that it's our tipuna that bring us together. When you speak about how we met, it was actually at one of your sacred sites here on Maui. And we were traveling with the Gathering of the Eagles. It's just a series of callings that we answer to that lead us on that divine pathway to find each other. So ngā mihi, I'm Whaia Sonic Weaver of Aotearoa, and I hail from the east coast of the North Island, Ngāti Kahungunu woman, and I was raised there by my kuia and my koro, my grandmother and grandfather, since I was 6 years old. And then my mother, she bridged over to Australia following my father, and then remarried an Aboriginal man. So I was raised then from the age of 6 onwards in the Yinjirbandi country in northwestern Australian outback desert of Australia. So I went from a little Māori girl in Murupara being raised in the forest and picking puha and watercress and the frost on my feet, to running through a desert, red earth, chasing kangaroos barefoot, wondering, who am I? And where am I? So that's been a path of just reclaiming who am I? And I think we all have this question of like, who am I? Where am I going? And, I'm hitting my elderly years. So I'll be 50 next year. And it feels good, actually. It feels really good because I think we struggle through that adolescent period. And we all kind of hit the dirt at some point, or hit that kind of road of where we really get stretched in our lives and tumbled around a little bit. I guess we feel pain as humans, right? And we always kind of look at that pain being something that it's not a good thing. Actually, it's always a beautiful thing for a seed to break through the earth and rise up to the sun and grow and stretch and blossom. And I feel like at this part of my life, that's where I'm at. So thank you for having me. Come and tell some stories. Haven't caught it all with you both.
Yeah, I really appreciate the remembrance of trusting the process and flow that lead you to the connections that, for example, today. Personally, the way I was introduced to you was through the stories of Scott and his experience in Iao. And being someone from Hawaii, it's always beautiful to witness someone who gets to experience the magic of the islands and what they provide when we surrender and are very present to the signs and opportunities that arise, just being in that flow. And then to be told, I recently got back from Molokai just 2 days ago to have my own little pausing experience before what I feel like this momentum that's gathering for this powerful year ahead. Scott tells me, oh, there's a sound journey experience. Would you like to go? And I was like, oh, that sounds perfect to transition from being in Molokai to being back in Maui and get the ball rolling. And I intentionally allowed myself to not explore what it was. I'm also in a phase of allowing myself to fully receive. So Scott was like, I'll take care of everything. I have everything you need. Just get in the van and go. And that's very foreign for me. Usually I'm the one orchestrating and driving and in that position. And then to show up and be like, oh, this is about to be something beyond any expectation. And to have that moment where I got to witness you in your calling, in your power, in your presence was just astronomically profound. And we'll go into that in more detail later. But what I wanted to start with was this experience of I'm going to go into a sound journey. Based on my past experiences before, I'll just relax into this and just receive. And 5 minutes in, I was like, okay, this is not what I'm anticipating it to be in terms of this fluffy journey through sound and frequency, which is also beautiful and it serves its purpose. And I got very clear energy notice from you as you struck those bowls that, oh, we're going in. We're going to teleport. You're going to experience something very powerful right now, to the degree of where it's almost like energetically you're saying at this moment, you basically don't have a choice because you're here. You showed up. And the frequency of those bowls right at the beginning was the initiation for me of surrendering to what you had to offer with not knowing what I was getting into in the beginning. And once I surrendered to the discomfort, which is, I feel like, a part of our journey over the last year of grief and just life in general, of honoring the discomfort. And on the other side of that discomfort is just immense beauty and magic that is really inexplainable and very individual to the person in terms of what comes up. And for me, it was the witnessing of you stepping into your voice and sharing that with us and protecting us with it in that container. And I was telling Scott on the way home, it's almost like you tricked us. There's this energy of the loving and we're going to go on a journey. And as soon as the lights went off and you sat in that space in the dark and I opened my eyes and I watched you and I was like, oh, we're going into ceremony.
Yes.
And once the ceremony started, it was like, oh no, we're really going into ceremony. And I need to surrender to everything, even the voices that you said were going to come through, and give it opportunity to be seen and put it to the side. And it was just, I loved the fact that it was not what I expected, and the playful, we're going in energy without you telling us that we were. And the whole process of that pure surrender was beautiful to witness around me. I know people were just uncomfortable, allowing themselves to surrender to how intense it was at moments. But the safety that you had and the way you embodied yourself without people watching gave them the ability to completely surrender. And that's something I feel is very powerful for myself to witness, and also very necessary for people to tap into in themselves with navigating the world and our voice. And so many of us have felt like we lost our voice. So I want to thank you for showing up the way you do. It's opening up my eyes in ways that I would have never anticipated in terms of reclaiming my own voice and power. And I'm so grateful that we have to get to have this conversation where we get to learn a little bit more about yourself and how you got here and how you stepped into this sense of purpose, because we all know in the journey, it's never really clear. And it's all about trusting that unclarity to therefore allow it to be clear and letting go of expectations. And I feel, just based on our short conversations, I'm looking forward to whatever your space. I told Scott yesterday, I feel like all we have to do is give you a microphone and just sit back and listen.
Well, I do like to have a chat.
So it's perfect. And I just wanted to share that because we didn't get to really dive into what we experienced last night with you.
Yeah.
But there's so much to unpack for me, and I know as God as well, we were speechless for the whole ride home, acknowledging the power of what that was for us.
Beautiful.
And now to be able to sitting in our space with you, to give you more opportunity to share that voice in a way that other people can find ways to find you, and also us to learn how to better support you as well. And whether you're here in Maui or not, like I feel very honored to have experienced that with you, and looking forward to more lessons and learnings with you, as you clearly have so much wisdom to share and are inspiring me to tap into my kuia, my wisdom voice. So thank you.
Yes. Aloha nui. Wow. That's such a beautiful reflection, actually. And I've been receiving reflections ever since I began, which is like about 10 years ago. And I think I've been saying that for about 5 years already, because it feels like a really long time. I feel like with sonics, it really stretches time. And I feel like even when we walk with our wisdom and we walk in eldership and we're sitting in ceremony, I feel that we can, that time kind of dissipates in these types of spaces. The reflections that I have received are like multiple and many over the years, and they're all the individual essence of what happens when sonics touch our, not just our tinana, not just our body, but our soul, and how it really supports us at the time that we meet them. Yeah, there's so many things that you've said just then that I wish I could go back to and respond to, but I think it really comes down to the individual journey and the acceptance of that individual to really just to open to it. Yeah, we walk in with preconceptions about, well, oh, this is gonna happen and that's gonna happen, and then I'm gonna do this and that, and actually, our tipuna have a whole different version for us. If we just get out of the way, the doors swing wide open, more than we could even imagine. And I find that the less expectations we have on our life journey, the more blessed we become. And in fact, the abundance it's unstoppable. And it's so exciting to really kind of click that in your brain a little bit and shift your energy to that of no expectations. So recently walking with the Wisdom Keeper delegation and elders and being in ceremony quite a lot with a lot of really profound elders from around the world that I've been blessed to sit with in the last few years of my life. I've found sometimes we go, okay, we're going to be doing this, and we're going to go, and these people want us to come and speak, and we're going to go to this sacred site. And what I've learned is that the space shows us, if we're listening, if we're quiet enough, the space and the elements and the energies and the ancestors of that place tell us first of all, they greet us if you're quiet enough and respectful enough and introduce yourself, but they also let you know how it is to unfold. You don't have to worry about much, to be honest. And if you get your mind out of the way and just feel your way through things, and you allow, it's like you're watching visceral water move. It's like going for a swim in a river or an ocean. You can't tell the waves how to be. You just have to move with them. You know, sometimes you duck dive, sometimes you want to go over. It's actually the living moment is what we want to become in tune with. If we become in tune with the living moment, then everything just flows and it's easy. So I find when I hold a sacred sonic space, then I don't worry about, oh, I didn't rehearse this week. Oh my gosh, what am I going to sing this time? Or which instrument should I play and put them in line? I just let the space be free. And whatever I'm feeling, the more we practice being in the feeling of things, I just reach for it and it's right there. Or if you reach for it and you go, oh, what am I going to do with this? It's about being in a state of play. about being in a state of wonder. And then what would I do with this? Being an artist, being creator, being the creator of every moment of your life. And so when we start to master this, or practice, then get to mastery, then we actually, there's not much to think about. It's just being.
Mm-hmm.
Following your guidance, something like that.
You mentioned at the beginning, and I just, for our listeners, want to clarify one word. You used the word tipuna.
Tipuna, like your kupuna, you would say, right? Here in Hawaii.
Elder,
Yeah, well,
teacher.
when I speak about a tipuna, talking about those who have passed over.
That's kind of the feeling that I got, was those beyond the veil that are helping us.
Yes.
Our
on
ancestors.
our path.
Yeah, your ancestors.
Yeah,
Doesn't always have to be in the human realm either.
right.
Where we're talking about that the atua. Well, our atua are those elemental deities, our gods, like Tangaroa or Kanaloa, you call it? Kanaloa? Yeah, the god of the sea. When we enter the ocean, I'm always like just whispering to the waters when my feet touch the water, or even beforehand, just greeting Tangaroa. Also hine moana, because there is the masculine and the feminine essence to all of our atua. You know, when we're looking at it, it's not gender specific at all. And then we have our kaitiaki as well, our guardians. So we have the guardians of the forest and of the sky and the waters and on all realms, like most First Nations people. We have our ways of speaking to them, and they have their ways of speaking to us. Yeah. So I do love to sing to my tipuna. In fact, like when I mean, we do it as cultural people. It's part of our protocols. When we come onto marae, we are activating those voices within us from the spaces of creation, speaking from a wahine perspective. When we karanga, when we call out to our tipuna, we're asking them to join us, to be with us, as we're sitting together in this human breathing life, to help support us in discussions and decisions that we need to make for the collective, and how best to do that. So we have these ancient protocols that have been put in place for our health and wellness for good reason. And one thing that I thought was really interesting when I was first reclaiming this and remembering and being taught from one of my whaia back home, Te Raina Ferris, she asked me to kind of open up one of the meetings that we were having in the marae, and she said, "Oh, hey, bub, maybe you could play one of your crystal bowls to open the meeting." And I was like, "Oh, are we allowed to do that? Can we do that?" She's like, "Yes, it's our space. We can make new tikanga." And I was like, "Oh, we can? We can make new tikanga?" So, you know, there are ways like protocols that we used to do back in the day that actually just made sense, because really it's just all about common sense. I mean, there's ones for our spiritual side, and there's ones just for the physical human side that we need to do. Like, you take your shoes off before you go into the marae. Why? Well, because it's muddy, it's dirty, and we don't want to clean that. Whereas back in the day, we never had floors, so you never took them off. It was already dirt. So, things shift and move and progress. It's a new world today. I mean, we have so much technology and all sorts of things coming in, especially with the AI and how we're going to navigate that space. But I think really it's about merging that old world with our new world today, and how do we do that in a really good way that doesn't break us, I think.
And the reason I prefaced that question was because the way in which you used that word was remembering to answer the call, to listen to the whispers and the wisdom of life itself. And that was the reminder that the reason we sit in this room today is through the prayer that Leo sent to his now passed mother, and her guiding him to make the call to me, and then me answering the call, and then, to hear the call from the island to be like, slow down, and go out into nature and be, which has been for me very challenging to just slow down and not try to be productive all the time, right? And to listen and to remember that I have an innate sense that I can listen to and value upon versus what can I offer and how do I do this and, optimize and da-da-da. And it just reminded me as we were walking out of Whaia that day that there was a very distinct call as I just walked right up to Anella and just grabbed her phone. I was like, here, you need to be in this photo.
Yeah.
And then, to have that all unfold, I remember you being like, do you hear the music? It's him.
Yeah. That's right.
And then for Amber to answer the call when someone was like, okay, potluck tonight. And she's like, all right, we're going to be there. Where? And they're like, seriously, come.
Yeah.
And then for us to answer the call of like, oh, I want to be there,
Yes.
And then for Leo to answer the call to come to the journey last night, like all of this is us giving ourselves permission, as we talked about earlier, to let life's intelligence and innate wisdom guide us on this path.
Yes.
And it's, as you told the story earlier about Egypt, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point, like it's not always clear. The journey's not always clear, but the message is. And sometimes that takes a lot of bravery and courage to listen to, and it doesn't necessarily make sense in the mind.
Right.
And that's something I really appreciated about in last night's journey. It was very clear to me, I don't even know if you said it or not, but it was like the music, the sonics was so palpable that it was like, mind, get out of the way. Get out of the way, get out of the way. And my mind was like, I am louder than this. And there was moments when you were like, no, you're not. No, you're not.
No, you don't.
Right. Not here. Not today, Satan. And it was very clear because I too didn't know what I was getting into. It just said sound experience or whatever the flyer said.
Right.
Like, we're going to there's crystal bowls, as far as I know. And there's this like flute looking thing that kind of looks like an owl. Yeah. But I don't know what else is going down. And for you to pull out all these tools or instruments or whatever to create an experience that was so deeply vivid, like both Amber and Leo, like at some point sat up and watched you. I put that blindfold on and I did not take it off until you said, okay, now bring some life back into your hands.
Yeah.
I was in for the whole thing. And it was so deeply vivid. And I was confronted by so many narratives. And to that point of being like, can you surrender this? And it was like, no, I'm fighting for this. I have to hold on to this because there's something about this that I'm not okay with. And it was like, oh, okay. Do you hear that sound? What is? Am I in the jungle? Is that a jaguar? Like, I think that's a cicada. She brought the jungle, or we're in the jungle. I don't know what's going on. Is Amber okay? What happened to Leo? Like, who am I? It was so. I told him after we got done, I was like, I feel like I was in a Yahe ceremony. Like I was in a plant medicine, fully immersive experience, and was in full awe. Wasn't just like, I saw a loop station and I was the one that got looped. Like I don't know what just happened. And I kept saying that over and over. And I think that was the point, was like to remember, because the joke was on the way here, we were talking about something and then like a Cybertruck drove by. And I was like, and another Cybertruck. Like, just like, what is this matrix that we live inside of? And what is the reality of our human experience overlaid on top of this essence, the soul, the spirit that we travel through this experience as? And to have an experience like last night, to be like, I really don't know anything. I am.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it worked.
You've made it.
It worked. If you're looking for this, you want this feeling. It was incredible. And it was so beautiful to see the profound medicine that sound is, and I feel like, and that's one of the reasons live music was canceled during COVID, because there's something about being in the palpable vibration of another person and another musical experience. And that's a whole nother conversation, but just to say from the standpoint of like, that was deep medicine I'm still unpacking.
Yeah,
it was wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent. Then it's still working. Fantastic. Thank you for the feedback. And yeah, that's very funny, actually. Was that a jaguar? Could have been.
I don't know.
And it is, like, How powerful are our imaginations? I've been interviewed a little bit lately, and they go, "So, what is your message?" And I go, "Message? What's the message?" Oh, good question. Well, the Sonics are the message. But when I think about it, I think inspiration is the message. I do it because it inspires me. And I hope that inspires others. And if it does activate our imaginations, I mean, like here we are in front of all these screens all the time being fed the inspiration. This is what you're looking at. This is what you're thinking about. This is what you're going to program to be. I think inspiration needs to start to activate again like it used to when we were younger. And I think we really need to fire those synapses in the brain that really get those intuitive threads buzzing again. And I really feel like it's really the individual's journey to then create their own essence and their own story and their own messages. I mean, you both have very different journeys, very different visions. And I mean, that's just beautiful. And we haven't even heard Amber's yet. So, I mean, I always find that it's not my job to heal. That's not it. My job is to create a space to give people opportunity to actually explore their own healing. And if I can do that, if I can awaken something in somebody, then that makes my soul happy. I feel like, I have a purpose. I mean, I did it for my own self-healing. I started because I didn't have a voice. My voice was taken from me. And it's been a journey of reclaiming that voice for myself. When I was younger, and I'm going to go into a bit of a personal story here, and I've not really shared it publicly before. So I think it's quite special and poignant that we're talking about being human.
Yeah.
And what it is to be human is to be raw and vulnerable and to share your truth. And my truth is that when I was 7, I was sexually abused by my stepfather. I didn't know at the time, but my mother, she's just recently passed about 1.5 years ago. So I feel like I can finally tell the story without hurting her even more, because even though she wasn't there to protect me, she still did the best that she could with the skills she had. When I was 7, I believe I tried to tell her then, but she said she didn't know what I was talking about, although I feel like motherly intuition would tell you. Then again, at the age of about 9 or 10, I tried to tell her again because it was still kind of happening to a certain degree. And then I was asked for 2 days, "Are you sure? Are you sure? You've got to be really, really sure. Are you sure that you're sure?" And after 2 days, I went, "No, stuff it, forget this. I can't just sit here and be like antagonized into making sure that, did this really happen?" And then again at 14, I tried to tell it again. But at this point, I was now screaming it at him, and I ran, which is the short version. So I ran out of the house, and all I remember is him screaming at me, "If you go now, you can never come back." And so I ran out of the house, down the street barefoot with nothing but my school uniform on, and I ran to a phone box some streets away, and ended up calling one of my Aboriginal aunties, who then hid me from my mother to protect me, to get to me to child services. And I was living in a group home, and then, couch surfing and just living out there, surviving somehow when I was like 16 or 14 actually. So, yeah, I didn't really feel like my voice was heard in a place where I wanted to be loved. being the eldest of 5 children, I understand that she had the other kids to think of, and maybe I'm making excuses for her here, but I always felt like pushed to the side and not really heard. And so then began a life of just drugs, street life, just recklessness and all sorts of like unworthiness and chaos. And then it wasn't until I come to my 30s and I'd now had 2 children, and then we'd separated, and my partner, then the father of my boys, he was a very, well-known person, and I felt like I was living his life, and again, I didn't have a voice. I was just, the accessory to someone else's life. And I always remember when I was a little girl, before that kind of cut happened in my life, that really, I want to say damaged me, but also taught me how to survive, taught me how to be resilient, and gave me a lot of strength in that. Well, I found a lot of strength in that, let's put it that way, where I remember walking to school and thinking to myself, I remember turning the corner of the pathway to school and had my backpack and I can see the street. And I thought to myself, when I grow up, I want to be the best singer in the whole world. And I started singing my ABCs, like A, B, C, D, like I was just being silly. And I remember that I just hold that memory, that little girl who had a dream of wanting to use her voice and sing her heart out into the world, not for anyone but herself, for the pure joy and love of it. And so when I was 30 and I had a couple of kids and I was like, who am I? Oh my God, what's happening? I started the journey and I thought I'm going to start really honoring myself and starting this to walk towards the path of what really inspires me, what's really deep down in my gut that makes me happy, what brings joy to my life. And that was to use my voice and to use my joy, my heartbreak, to write music. So I sang for the first time in public in front of anyone when I was 30 years old. It was the first time I shared my voice. And I did it with a lot of Dutch courage, going through all that trauma. We were raised, with a lot of alcoholism, a lot of sexual abuse, domestic violence. That was a bit of a pattern. And so I would just play at friends' house while we're having a drink. And then they'd go, oh, well, we thought we were listening to the radio. Why don't you guys jam? And you should do a gig at the local bar. And then next thing you know, I've got an 11-piece band.
Wow.
And, we didn't even have a name, actually. It was so funny. It was just the Shelley Band, right? Because my mother named me Shelley. We did that for a while, maybe like 5 years or so. And then I was like, oh, okay, so this is fun, but there's kind of something missing. And then I was kind of thinking, well, what other instruments are there? Where are our traditional instruments? What are they? And then I started to have this question of like, wait a minute, you've got a whole realm of ancestry here. They're starting to speak to me now going, hey, there's a whole nother realm for you to explore when it comes to sound and music. And that's when I started to turn and I started to break away from all of my friends at the time and started to then go find my roots. And in that journey, the short version is that I ended up going back home to Aotearoa and reclaiming my language and going to school for a little while. And in that journey, I found my auntie Teraina Ferris, and she taught me how to karanga. But she taught me why we karanga, She taught me all of the layers that are beyond our physical selves and how we use our voice. And we use our voice not from our throat or our heart or our brain, but wahine, women, karanga, and use their voice from the space of creation. We use it from our womb. Our voice comes from the womb space where we bring forth life. And in that journey, I've learned to reclaim myself as a woman, how to heal my little girl that's been damaged through the lineages of our mother line, and then to go beyond that, to have reclaimed that and embodied that, to then start to teach that to other women and to support other women. And in that journey then has allowed me to find the other tools and then to just put them together. One day a friend of mine gave me a crystal bowl and boom, next minute, I'm playing these crystal bowls and becoming one of those crystal bowl people. And I'm like, what is happening? And then here we are today to the embodiment of the healing phonics that I shared today. So that's kind of how it progressed for me. And it's all a beautiful story, even the sad parts.
Thank you for sharing that. That was really powerful.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, I would, from the masculine essence of the voice, what's the philosophy of that? If for the feminine, it's the creation energy and creativity of, and speaking to the other side of the veil. As men, how can we also tap into our voice for ourselves and for our lineage and for our people? And what would you say?
When we talk about, and I'll do my best to speak on behalf of the masculine for the voice. I mean, my intuition tells me that the men, what I've been shared, and it's different for different tribal areas, and we all have our own kaupapa around that. But the men are there to protect life. They use their voice to protect women and the next generation, all of the mokopuna, all of the grandchildren. When you go to a marae and you see the pai where we sit, you will always see the men sitting in the front and the women will be sitting in the back. And that's not from a hierarchical perspective. That's from a logical perspective, because it's the grandmothers and the aunties in the back whispering to the men what might be important to share, what might be important to say in proceedings and things like that. But the men go up to the front because they're protecting that line. I mean, when back in the day, if you think about it, like they would send out a scout. Sometimes a scout would be a wahine, but most likely, usually, it would be a tāne, and that warrior would go out with his taiaha and have a look through the forest, the mist, or wherever we are, and just go and get a lay of the land to see if it was safe for the women and children to come through. So that voice, although it might be a quiet inner voice, is still a very, very vital one for the protection of the tribe. And then you have that ultimate mana and power when it comes to the voice of a haka, the voice of a warrior, that is going to say, no longer will you disrespect this space. Do not come any further if you don't come with good intentions. And so, this voice is also a very, very fierce one that we as women really are calling out for, both to be in balance, that really quiet inner strength and also that fierce one as well. I mean, if I think about it with my husband, my beautiful darling, I'm so honored that to walk with him, to be with him, that he chooses me still after, I know I can be quite strong in my opinions and, the way I feel things need to be done. And he's very quietly supportive, but then he's not afraid to actually go, oh, hang on a minute. Stop being a butthead. You know what I mean? So we do kind of need that.
Yeah.
We need that. Women need that. We need that softness and gentleness. sometimes we also need these kind of like the strength that kind of holds us. I think when it comes to that, I also find like, you know, the power in that haka. Like we have some of our men back home in Australia who run men's circles, and I think there's nothing more beautiful than that, to have those spaces for our tāne, our younger boys as well, coming into that adolescence, to be able to go and actually feel the guttural roar that you need. You know, sometimes we're too busy holding ourselves together in the workplace and the family life and that, and we all need to have a scream about it, and we don't want to be judged for it either, right? We don't want to be going, oh, you're frightening me, which can be coming out in a toxic way. It's coming out in the family life. And, you know, yeah, we get it as women, but men also have this too. So we both need our spaces when it comes to be able to just releasing energy.
Yes.
That we have these pressures put upon us in our society these days and the way we're living.
Thank you for sharing that, because I was sharing with you earlier before we started recording was this new relationship to my voice and the acknowledgement of how I was unaware of the way I was not utilizing my voice correctly and within my power, and resonating with your share of where my relationship to my voice was either not speak at all because you didn't want to be too much in terms of your expressions and emotions, or the extreme spectrum of that is I feel so unheard that I'm yelling. I feel so disrespected that I'm yelling, and never really understanding that those were the only two ways I was navigating the use of my voice, which in the last 24 hours, I'm acknowledging within myself and probably within most people is the most powerful thing we can share is our voice. When we're not tuned in to how we're utilizing our voice on a daily basis in terms of, like you said, not even having the opportunity to release the suppressed stress and anxiety and energies of day-to-day life, just only festers to make it easier to blow up into a yelling expression of bringing that into the home. And I know from my own experience, it's not something we're proud of, and it's something that a lot of men don't necessarily know how to manage because we don't even have some of us don't even have the experience of letting that out in a safe way. To be able to yell without being judged, to be able to roar without scaring people, but acknowledging that that is an energy that's within us, and when not released properly, can be very, very not only toxic, but hurtful. And that's been a powerful lesson over the last year for me, is calling in power for 2025 and giving it space and time to cultivate into whatever that defines for me. And that's become very clear again, that my voice is at least the first doorway I'm going to step into within my power, and acknowledging how I used it in the past and forgiving myself for it.
Yeah.
Because I, like you were sharing with your mother, she did the best she could, just like my mother did the best she could to give me a voice, even when she didn't.
Yeah.
And now giving myself a little bit more compassion and gentleness with there's powerful medicine and lessons with the way I use my voice up until today. And now I have a choice to really lean into that power of utilizing my voice and exploring that more in a way where it's willing to be respected and heard, as opposed to scare away or as opposed to protect myself. I'm seeing the gentleness and the fire as the way you use your voice in ceremony, of knowing when that tone change, when that pace, and you embodied this, what I believe like this master space holder through sound and voice, and acknowledging like, here's an opportunity for me to come full circle and let go of the things that we felt like we made mistakes in the past and learn from them, and utilize the voice in a way that feels very connected to a healthy source of power, which, like you said, the only, from what I understand, just an observation, is we have to lose our voice or acknowledge that we've lost our voice in order to reclaim it. And I'm so glad you went into that share, because I was about to ask you, could you share how you found your voice? And that was a beautiful reminder for me that we're all on this journey separately and together,
Yeah.
of really learning what that voice is for each of us. And I just wanted to acknowledge, the difficulties of that relationship with voice and within ourselves and with those around us, with the way we desire to be communicated to and not
Right.
receiving that, but getting the lesson of, well, you have an opportunity now to make a choice of how to do this in a better way and model that for the kids. My question going into this next part is, as a mother, one of the things I found so beautiful to observe last night was that Moana, your daughter, was in the space with you, holding the space, supporting the space, and also being her authentic self as a child. And I'm curious with also the share you said earlier around trusting the journey and having $8 in your bank account and being at the UN summit and everything just being provided for
Yeah.
while your daughter's in tow with you, where she gets to absorb and witness that as a really beautiful example and model. I'd just love to hear your experience of being so open and your maybe your parenting philosophy in that sense of you stepping into your power and sharing that with the world, as well as sharing that experience with your daughter or your sons, like however that is. But from what I witnessed with your daughter, it's like such a beautiful, profound example for me to how I want to lead my life as a parent as well. To not separate them from the space is where I show up,
Right.
or when they are there to control them so that they're not disrupting. And there was such harmony in your relationship with her in that space. I'd love to hear your experience as a mother of sharing this world travel journey with
Yeah.
her.
First of all, it's not always harmonious.
Totally.
That's the reality of parenthood. It is a juggle. I'm lucky enough to come back around the circle as far as parenthood because I have a 23-year-old son, Jagger, and a 21-year-old boy, Keo. Well, they're men now. What am I saying? They're men and they've flown. And I'm definitely not the same woman that I was when I had Moana, of course. All life experience stretches us and develops us as parents. And, I get to have another go at it, actually. I get to do the things that I wish I had done with my sons, with my daughter. But I couldn't, even if I wanted to, because, they all have their own stories and they've all got their own essences and life journeys. But with Moana, I'd already been playing my sacred sonics and been dreaming about her. When I was pregnant with her, I played every day, all the time. Poor thing, she probably got blasted being in water from holding the guitar or playing the bowls. It's like, what's happening out there? What is that other world of sound? And so when I had her, I had gone home to reclaim my cultural practices. So I was able to then birth her knowing how we used to do it, how we used our voice to birth our children instead of just going, ow, I'm in pain, oh my God. To actually be able to use the breath and the voice in such a way where we're now calling them in with language to their arrival into the world of light. With our language, with our whakatoki, with our proverbs, using those ancient proverbs of chanting so that when she's arriving, this is the first thing that she hears. So I was really, really blessed to have followed that call, to have gone home to reclaim that. So now that when I'm birthing my third baby, she has that ancient wisdom embedded in her before birth. Said to my husband, I said, you've got to catch her, right? You've got to hold her. I want you to hold her and then pass her back to me. So then he did. And then the first thing I did was sung a language woman's song to her. So it was the first thing that she heard. 2 days before that, I was doing a workshop of crystal bowls and tonga puro down the road at a festival. So I had this huge belly and I was trying to play crystal bowls. So, but then moving on, like she has always just been there. I've always just had her with me. So I remember learning to surf, not learning to surf. I was pregnant with my two boys and I would just be surfing 3 times a day. So eventually, the belly gets bigger and bigger, and by the end of it, about 7 months pregnant, I'm like a V8 on my longboard now with a big belly. And it's just, you don't notice it. It's not like you're just all of a sudden going out with a huge belly. You're just like, every day it's a little bit bigger, but I surfed while I was pregnant with both my boys till I was 7 months. So it was just natural thing. Same thing with Moana. I'm just living my life. Like it's not like a me life and a them life. It's a us life. And if we just integrate them into it, which is tribal way anyway,
Right.
really. It's not like we ever used to drop them off at like some daycare back in the day. No, well, that was aunties and uncles, wasn't it? Or rather, it was our koro and our kuia. The mokos, the grandchildren would go to the grandparents. The generational wisdom is then transferred because we're too busy hunting, weaving, fishing, and doing all the things as parents. These days now we're living a very solo life, so we are kind of like juggling all by ourselves a lot of the time. So this kind of like house sharing is just a beautiful thing. But with Moana, it just came to a point where my husband had to go back to work full time, and then I was being asked to go to places to be with the other elders, to be in ceremony, to go into the United Nations space now that we're doing the work we're doing right now. And it was like, well, the only way that it could happen is if I bring Moana with me. And she was just turning 6 at the time. She was just a bit old enough to be able to walk around and stuff. And they went, yeah, well, sure, that'll be fine. So I brought her along, and now that's what we've been doing. We've just come back from our third COP. She was in Dubai with me last year in 2023. And then this year in Azerbaijan in 2024, and then she'll be coming with me in 2025 to Belém in Brazil for the UNFCCC, and it's just natural progression. When she was 6, it was quite, it was a bit tough, but she's really strong, and she's kept up with us. We would have to get up really, really early, and if we're doing dawn ceremonies, and we're staying up late, and we're walking like miles. Like these conferences are not just in one place; like they're spread over like football fields sometimes. So we're hiking it, and she's just and the strength that we have is the group that we're walking with. So some aunties will piggyback Moana, or someone will grab my bag, or, we're all there helping each other. And she's just one of our babies, and that's just the way it is. It's not like, take care of your kid or anything like that. No, it's not like that, because they're elders. They get it.
Right.
And she's learning so much. Like we homeschool, life school, and she may not be a fluent reader yet, but boy, can she tell you some things. And can she converse with adults as well. But she's observing and witnessing and listening. We had a presentation just recently where the elders were sharing some things. One of the elders was holding a conch, and he was just tapping the end of it, making that pop, pop sound. And then other things happened. And 2 days later, I saw her picking up the conch, and she was making that same action and movement. And I went, there it is. And it's just by being in the space. I don't have to drum it into her. There's nothing that I really have to do except just bring her into the space. Now, like I've really only come into the space in the last 3 years. I'm in my later 40s. She's 7. And I think, wow, if that's what I'm sharing with her at this age, imagine what she's going to do with her life.
Wow.
If she's already talking and thinking this way. I'm not worried about her as far as is she going to be okay? She's already getting it. And I just love that as a mother, that I can offer that to her. On top of me, really, I feel I'm still developing myself in the work. It's still growing. It's constant growing. The tree just doesn't stop growing, so yeah, it's really exciting time actually.
Wow. I'll celebrate that with you, because that's really beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
To have that as a model for parenting, I come from a background of both parents grinding it out, and not there for most of the day. And I also set this intention with my son Zenith that I'm going to be as present as I can, as much as possible that's available, because I grew up with a lack of presence. And just to envision and imagine Moana's roots that are being built now from such an early age of anything is possible from here on out, right? Is what I receive in that, and what I desire for my son as well is for him to truly see the world and acknowledge that he has the ability to navigate life however he desires. As we grew up in the classroom, you know, and my son homeschools as well, or life school, like you shared. And it's beautiful to witness another variation of that. And I just want to celebrate that, because I'm just stoked for Moana to be able to travel around and see the world and through her own eyes, and through the way you're navigating it is just a beautiful thing for the keiki to have. And I call that in and desire more for that for the kids who are coming up, and
Right.
As well as my son. And yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that, because that was
Thank
beautiful.
you. I mean, we are very blessed. We're very lucky to be able to be that supported to do that. And I'm really grateful that we have a family that sees that, that sees beyond that, and it comes out and, you know, it's born out of necessity, but then it becomes a natural progression. And I think, you know, it's really we're in a time where we can really develop the way we want our lives to be, the way we want to look at it. I mean, we're busting out of the matrix, and we are actually redesigning our lives, or redesigning how we're making a living.
Absolutely.
And it's all possible. So, yeah, stepping out of that, I think it takes a lot of courage, because it's not easy. You know, sometimes we don't have, and, you know, we live humbly. It's okay. You'll survive. Don't worry. You're not going to starve.
Right.
I mean, you'll always find a meal somewhere. What fills us up the most is knowledge, and aroha, and love. Like, we have that loving, caring family and spirit around us. We're full. There's not much more that we really desire, to be honest, as far as being part of this world and having a purpose. But I think the point is to find your purpose and to be actioning that, to be moving towards that. And it's always just one little nudge after another, And I mean, like, that was 20 years ago when I first started sharing my voice, to today. Okay, it doesn't have to be that long for some, but I think there's something to be said about having a slow burn. It actually shapes and grows you into the perspective of being ready for certain things of great dreams. So if you just pursue that and you don't have, we're not perfect, we're not machines, okay? It may not happen every day, but a little bit over a bit of a lifetime, over a decade or two, a couple of years, a couple of weeks. You know, you just keep moving towards that. There's no doubt you'll find yourself there. There's no doubt that you'll be in that space and place of what you dream about. That big, gigantic pie in the sky that people talk about, it's not unreachable. It's not untouchable if you hold on to it and you believe that it's absolutely possible, no matter how long it takes. And you can take your family with you.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually, we're meant to take our family with us. We didn't get in a waka and leave half of them. Oh, okay, maybe some of them we said goodbye to, but we took the best of what we have and we put it in the waka. And we put all those tools and seeds and, you know, treasures that'll help us along on our journey. And then we find new land and we find new ways. And the winds take us to where we're meant to go, and the currents guide us and how fast or how slow we move. And our tipuna, the whales and the birds, will show up and give us signs along the way. Look for those signs as you're moving throughout your life, because they might seem like inconspicuous consequences, but they'll just spark something in you. When you get those sparks of life, those sparks of joy, even from complete strangers, sometimes will tell me stories, and I'll go, why did they tell me that? That's weird. I want to go to that, just like how we met. Oh, could you help take our photo with our group? Yeah. And then there's just this energy. It's just energy moving.
Mm-hmm.
And when you learn to actually acknowledge that energy, and you'll see it again and again, and it'll become more frequent, and you'll be able to recognize it easily. The more you practice that, more you follow it, and you'll be flying in no time.
You know, to that point of noticing that frequency, and what you spoke to earlier on was around like cultivating this feeling inside of us as this compass waypoint to let the body's intuition kind of guide us, for you to sit up and to witness, and, you know, for all of us in our own accords to walk this path. It's such a beautiful reminder that Amber and I talk a lot about this unsustainable model that we currently live in society, where we send our kids to daycare or latchkey, and they get raised by these random people with these foreign smells, and they have no idea who are raising them, and the knowledge isn't there, and the wisdom is gone, and it really speaks to this call, this return home that we're all being invited and dare I say beckoned back to. And you know, your recant of, you know, being in these summits where others would, just through their innate, the technology in their DNA is, hey, we've got you. And it's not all up to us as a singular entity.
Right.
And that is what we've been bred and sold to believe, you know, and the middle of believe is lie, you know, and this this old way of being that we're coming back to. And I'm curious, for you on your mission in the world, how does that show up in the way that you emanate your presence, remind individuals around you back to that wisdom?
I think I'm just an example of the wisdom that I have reclaimed within myself, and I'm just sharing that example to and with people. And if I'm doing that, then perhaps they may go and journey and find their wisdom and go, oh, she's that kind of, yeah, you might maybe to look at me and go, oh, she's Maori, and oh, she sings this, and she does. I don't know everything about my culture. I'm not a fluent speaker. Like, I don't know every story and every song and of the kapahaka actions. Like, I don't know that. I don't need to know that. I know everything I need to know because I am Maori. My grandmothers and grandfathers are in me. And I've learnt not to judge myself for not knowing things. I've learnt not to judge myself for not knowing my language fully. I've learnt to accept that I'm one of the elders, granddaughters that got in that waka and journeyed to other places and learnt other things from other cultures and other peoples, and then I'm bringing it back. That's what I've come to understand, my specific journey. And I think it's about, and you know, I've only got a little bit in my basket, but what I do with it is in a big setting, I guess, for some. And, you know, sometimes I'm in humble, like, homes and little community halls sharing what I do. It's not about where I'm sharing it. It's about that I am sharing it. The way I think about it, if one person shows up, I'm here for it. And if no one shows up, I'm still going to be here for it. I'm still going to go through my motions. I'm still going to run those sonics through my own body, through my own practice. Sometimes a lot of people show up, you know, and I'm in different spaces. So if I can know who I am and know where I'm going, then I can just share that energy with the world and hopefully inspire you to help you remember who you are and help inspire you to figure out where you might want to go.
Mm-hmm.
You shared a little bit when we were sitting down eating, but this whole process of trusting this journey you're on that has led you to countries and places that you would have never imagined, right? And you're talking about just not even thinking about how, not even thinking about the bank account, and leaning into the surrender of I'm being pulled whatever direction the wind is taking me and whatever pace, and you're always provided for. As in, a lot of people also are desiring this experience in life where they feel that held in life in the journey. I'd love for you to tap into how you got to Maui and what you're doing after this in terms of like not only sharing your frequency and space holding, but your true voice of the people you're representing through your voice and speaking out at these gatherings, in terms of like your mission and your culture. And I'm sure our audience would love to hear this process of true surrender, right? Where the complete unknown, and somehow you're here in Maui, and somehow you're going to the Big Island, and then and more.
Well, I'm part of a Wisdom Keeper delegation, a group of elders that walk into the United Nations space. That's been a progressive journey over the last 3 years. That's just come about in being of service, to be honest. And then it's just grown and grown and grown each time you step into that embodiment of being of service. And then it just starts to show you what's really, really possible. So I was asked to go to Azerbaijan this year and be with the Wisdom Keeper delegation. The first day that I showed up to that event, I connected with another elder who then said, "Oh, are you coming to Saudi Arabia for the climate summit there?" And I'm like, "I'm not sure what you mean." And she goes, "Well, we're having the desertification climate summit there. Are you coming?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm not really been invited." She goes, "Yes, but if I invited you, would you come?" And I went, "Yes, of course I would come." I didn't even know really what it's about. But the fact that I'm being called to go somewhere, the answer's just yes. And then you figure it out later. Because if your tipuna, if your ancestors are sending you work, that's usually how it comes.
Right.
It comes in the disguise of "Hey, I really need you to be here. Can you make it?" "Oh, no, I'm really busy." "Well, what are you busy doing?" Sitting around doing laundry. It's be of service, and then find that you come alive. It lights the fire in you. So just saying yes, I mean, we had finished the gathering in Azerbaijan, and we went on our own dime to kind of wait in another country in Georgia. And I didn't even have a ticket. I'd said goodbye to my other ticket to get home to Australia. And then we're sitting in Georgia going, "Do you really hope this works?" Because I don't know how I'd be getting home.
Wow.
And 2 days before we were meant to be there, the ticket came, the visa came. And then all of a sudden we're in Saudi Arabia and we're serving in Saudi Arabia now. And I'm thinking, okay, so what am I meant to do? I mean, I'm a sound healer. What's it got to do with the desertification in Saudi Arabia of the climate and what's happening in deserts? And then I realized it wasn't really about that. It was about sitting with the other elders and being together for 4 to 6 hours a day to run through a document, actually to sit down and learn how to sit together to write a document that represented all our voices, 42 elders from 7 regions from around the world, that created a declaration that was the first Indigenous voice to be recognised in 31 years inside the UNCCD arena. So it became quite a big deal. It started to reveal itself out as we were there and why I was being asked to be there. Now, there are a lot of people that are very knowledgeable and as far as policy is concerned, very well versed when it comes to writing and language and all this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, what what would you like? What am I supposed to do? Okay, I'm listening, I'm observing. I don't want to sit in the big chair, or I don't want to sit up there with the microphone. Oh, no, that's somebody else's job. Well, it's all our job, actually. And what we have to do is claim space. What we have to do is give ourselves permission to have a voice, that you may not, be wearing that blue suit. In fact, you don't have to wear anything but yourself. And it can be quite intimidating when you're going into spaces like this, because you see a sea of suits that just move, right? And we're like a walking rainbow that kind of come over the top of this like other energy that's moving around.
Yes.
And we're so engaging with people. Like, people every 5 steps want to come up and say hello. And like, I think as humans, we're like yearning for this connection. We're yearning to be awakened. We're yearning to have some kind of like interaction with life. And that, we have practices that keep us close to nature, right? So when we're in that closer relationship with nature, we are literally glowing. And I think people feel that. I think people see that. And I think it's just our responsibility to take that energy into spaces like this, where it's quite and you get very sleepy on the policy, and you start to slip into this kind of lull and lullaby when it comes to policy and the decisions that they are making for us as an entire human race. So I think you don't have to know politics. I'm an artist, musician predominantly. I'm a ceremonial woman, yes. And I think it's really about showing up. Just show up. Be who you are. Be Indigenous. Be human. Be there with your set of skills and your knowledge, because it takes a whole rainbow of skills to be able to navigate what we're trying to lay down as far as, laws and guidance of how to live in reciprocity with nature at this time in our lives, right? What the elders call the time of turning. So we're turning on the calendar, but we're also like turning in this universal spin. We're coming around to a certain time where like things are moving really, really fast.
Yes.
It's about being in the space and sharing your voice. And I was thinking afterwards, I was like, wow, imagine if Mandahi wasn't there. Imagine if a Peruvian elder wasn't there. Imagine if our Colombian elder wasn't there. Imagine if our auntie wasn't there and she wasn't singing. And imagine if we weren't there. Imagine if Indigenous voices were not there, not part of it. How dead that place in space would be energetically. And I don't mean that in a negative sense for them, but I mean... And I think that's really starting to take a shift. Like, we walk around with bells on and we've got rattles on, and all of a sudden we have a sound that even travels through the space. And for one thing, we can find each other because like, oh, there's the sister, yeah, over there, yeah, all right. But also, people start to go, oh, what's that? It's a little bit about disruption. We have to disrupt the space in a good way. Not in an aggressive way. And I think that's kind of important. There is a video that kind of went out. We had a press conference. I was, we'd had one before that, and I was like, oh, I'm not getting up in that big table. That's too intimidating, right? Then we had another one, and they're like, okay, Fire, come on, you got to come up and fill this chair. And I'm like, oh, no, so-and-so can get up. Someone else can do that. And he's like, no, get in the chair, Fire. And I'm like, okay. And I was sitting there thinking, oh my God, what am I going to say? And here I was even getting into my brain, right? My brain's going, and I'm like, shush. And it's like, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? Oh my God, blah, blah, blah. When I stopped thinking about myself and I started listening to what my elders were saying, our Sami elder would start to speak. She would talk about her life and perspective from mining and how it affects her life and the reindeers and snow and all the land. Then the Amazonian elder would speak, and then so on and so on. And I thought, oh, maybe I should play an instrument. Like that's my gift. My gift is sound. And I said to my elder sitting next to me, I went, do you think it'd be all right if I played my kawowo, my flute? He's like, yeah, Whaia, that's a good idea. And I went, yeah, okay, cool, that's what I'll do. And then I was listening to the next elder speak, and what they were saying had such depth to it. And by the time it got to me, I thought to myself, I don't think a sweet flute is really going to support the mana of the words that I've just heard from all of my elders that have just spoken. The one thing that I could give to uplift the mana of what they've just shared is to stand up and do what I know how to do, and that's to karanga. That's to bring the voice of the heavens into the space through me to awaken us. Because that's the biggest offer that I can give, my voice. So I just stepped back and stood up, and I didn't think about it as this intimidating political space with all the big cameras and the big chairs and stuff. I just thought about it as if these are my elders, and my people are fighting in the parliament right now to protect our treaty, and they're standing up. And they're using their voice and they're saying, no, you will no longer oppress us with your ways anymore. And I felt the mana of them, and if they can do it, we all need to do it. So that's what inspired me to stand up in that space, in that moment, to actually just offer my heart. And then I sat down and said a couple of things I barely remember. Because we're in a different dimension when we're talking to our tipuna. We're in our bodies become lighter, and we're touching other spaces of knowledge. And when we do that, we can deliver things that are beyond ourselves. And I think that's where the real work and wisdom starts to come in. And I sat down and went, oh no, what did I just say? Well, anyway, it's there, it's done, and now we just keep walking on and we keep doing the work. And then all of a sudden, people started seeing that and feeling that. And that video's gone more viral than any other video of our Wisdom Keeper delegation. I'm like, but there is so much that has been said before me.
Right.
But why isn't that going viral? That needs to be shared. That needs to be heard. The wisdom of our elders need to be heard. And I guess if I can be a voice that opens a door for the rest to follow and flow, then I feel like I'm contributing to the whole.
When you were talking about as the Wahine use their voice, they do it to create through their womb, and that the men use it to protect the women. This reminder, I don't remember where I heard it, in the Instagram world somewhere, that men are here to protect women in the physical realm, and women are here to protect men in the spiritual realm. And this reminder that I have found in my partner to keep me on my path, to remind me when I stray, and then my anchoring for her as a sense of safety. And it's so beautiful to hear how you're using your voice in such a way to create not only a space but a reminder for us to come home to that. And this call that we're all having in the world right now to remember the way in which we show up for ourselves. When I asked the question earlier about mission and whatnot, what came into my mind either before I asked it or afterwards, somewhere in it was this idea of like, oh, protect the land. But it's so counterintuitive to protect the land when we don't protect her. When we don't take care of ourselves, how could we ever take care of the earth? And this idea of coming home to ourselves and seeing what we put in our bodies or who we surround ourselves with and how we poison ourselves. And of course, if we poison ourselves, we're going to poison the land. And this opportunity we have now to just pause, to, and one of the last things you said last night in the ceremony was something to the effect of like, let the silence speak. And this opportunity and so much of what we're talking about here is the sharing of our voice. But it's also this pause in between that has such a alarming tone to it of depth and knowledge and wisdom. And I'm curious in your life how silence has helped forge, or what silence has done for you in regards to when to use your voice and when not to, or to hold space for others to use theirs.
Silence is such a powerful thing. I mean, when you're just completely surrounded and embodied by high frequency sound that you can't hear anything else but those sonics, and then they kind of dissipate and fall away, and then there's nothing. It's the nothingness.
Right.
The nothingness is where all creation is birthed. When we talk about the long, dark night, when we talk about Tepo is the night. But it goes deeper than that, and to talk about the nothingness, and in that nothingness, all is possible, all creation is possible. So, yeah, so much noise in the world that if we can find spaces of silence, to grab a peaceful pause somewhere, maybe to just have like no thoughts for a bit, because we're constantly thinking about what we're going to do, where we're going to go, how we're going to take care of this, that, and the other. And it's almost so overwhelming. I get so overwhelmed. People have anxiety through the roof these days because there is no silence. Mm-hmm. They can't find any silence. Or is it that we're not making enough time and space to have silence in our day for ourselves? That was a beautiful thing about our tipuna. When we were in a time of peace, they could just sit around and just be in silence, where we can actually hear a bird, hear the wind just rustle through the leaves of the trees. And I mean, in these sounds, these essence of the vibrations of nature just wafting over us like a beautiful massage. And yeah, it's a rare thing that we get to experience that these days. I mean, we're going out on Whaia lately. Recently, we're learning about our canoe journeys with our Hawaiian family here in Maui. And it's just magical, just get out on the water and hear quiet, hear just the rocking of the canoe, or when you put your paddle into the water and you can hear that slipstream. And you can start to get into a theta brainwave activity, even just by paddling canoe. Because you start to, first of all, you're thinking, oh my God, oh, my arm's hurting so much. Oh, how much longer have we got to go? Oh my God, I'm so hot. I'm thirsty. I'm hungry. I'm tired. And then eventually, all that just starts to go away, because you can't stop. If you stop, you're letting down everybody else. So you kind of have this responsibility, and you don't want to let them down because they're your family. So you just keep going, and all of a sudden the pain goes away, because now you're starting to get into this theta action, and it stops the thinking. So we've got to get out of our comfort zone for a start, and we've got to really put something else in place of that, whatever it is, whether you're going to get on a bike, if you're going to go for a jog, or you're going to go and just sit and meditate at the top of a mountain down your local park, or whatever it is. I mean, you can meditate in the middle of the city if you want to try, and I think the point is just to try. But yeah, the space of silence is where you find the answers that you're looking for, because it's already in you. You just have to be quiet enough to be able to listen and open that door.
Yeah, as a follow-up question, I was going to ask, just on behalf of our listeners, like, what would you suggest for someone who wants to to deepen their ability to hear the call, let alone answer the call. And maybe you just did in the carving out of silence, but I'm curious to hear your perspective on, for individuals who want to deepen their connection to their guides, their kipuna or otherwise, or kipuna.
Yeah, the first thing I would suggest is to go and find your elders. If your elders are not around you, which most of the time they are, you just haven't found them yet. You just have to start asking the questions. You ask one person, ask another person. I mean, you might be in a place where they're not your people. It's okay. There's still elders there. They're still waiting to share their wisdom and knowledge. And I believe in a time of today, our First Nations Indigenous elders will share with anyone. If you come with a good heart, if you come with the right intentions, our elders are willing to share with anyone that wants to help, support in a good way. So, I live in Australia. I'm Māori. I would see them in a supermarket, in a veggie section, and I would just go and say hello. Don't be afraid. Don't be shy. It's all it takes. One sound. Hi. Kia ora. Aloha. Whatever it is. You can go to cultural centres. You can find them there. You can find them fishing. Just go up and say, oh, have you caught anything today? Start a conversation. Start to connect. If not there, go to the sacred sites. Go to those sacred sites that are near you. They don't have to be some glorified great ancient Egypt pyramid. It could be your local mountain. It could be a special place that you have heard about, that you just go and sit there quietly. You never know who might show up. It could be a person. It could be a bird. It comes in many forms, wisdom, and not always from the human realm, like I was saying before. If you are going to a sacred site or to a place, I would always recommend to announce yourself before you walk into that place, just to say, hello, it's me, Geraldine, whatever your name is. I'm here. I come from a place wherever, far away. I want to acknowledge you. I want to respectfully enter and be welcomed. I come with my heart. And off you go. You go for a walk. And then you find a special place that speaks to you. Sit down, have a rest, look around, listen, close your eyes, have a dream, say a prayer, make an offering, give a flower, sing a song, whatever it is that speaks to your heart. And then allow time after that to unfold. And I don't mean just in that day, but days afterwards. And that's a practice that anyone can do, any person can walk to take. If you just keep kind of following those ways, eventually you'll find that things just start showing up for you in certain ways. People start going, oh, hey, yeah. Oh, I heard you were looking for an elder. Oh, yeah, I know Auntie so-and-so. I can take you. You can go meet them. And some elders are meant to share with you and some aren't. Some may know and some may not. So don't be afraid if you get a no. It's okay because, we've all gone through colonization. A lot of our elders have been oppressed in their wisdom and feel a lot of pain. So it may take some time to find certain elders that may be carrying certain knowledge. And just know that when you come across the ones that actually open the doors for you, they're the ones that you're supposed to walk through. And that's the wisdom that you're supposed to receive. Not the one you think you're supposed to receive, but the one that you are meant to. So that's always something to be aware of. And if you get a little hiccup along the way, if you've done something wrong and you might have offended someone or something, don't worry, it happens to all of us. We're not perfect. It's okay. Just think of it as if you're a little girl and you accidentally broke your mum's special vase, it's all right. You know, you didn't hurt anyone, and you can always apologize, ask for forgiveness, even if it's in in the spirit realm and of yourself or physically to that person. Just be humble, be human, and you'll find your way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. That kind of teed it up for you know, to be human, right? And so
Yeah.
on the Embracing Human podcast, we like to ask, like, what does it mean to be human for you?
Oh, being human is exciting, right? I think about it sometimes and I go, oh, I really love being human. There was a time in my life I didn't want to be. I didn't want to be anymore. I was in a lot of pain. But I just gave myself love and hope and trust that it's not going to stay that way forever. Things always change, and they change for our better. No matter how worse they can be, they change for the better. And I love being human. I love swimming. I love surfing. I love being in the ocean. I love to feel the visceral world of this life, of this beautiful earth. I mean, it's a pretty nice place to hang out, I've got to say. Like, I really have a lot of fun. I love to use my voice. I love to sing. I love to play. I mean, loving is fun. It's also challenging sometimes. And just recently I've been thinking about how much longer I'd just love to hang around. But I can't say whether I can or not. So I just always am mindful about my time here, being human, and to really acknowledge that I'm not sure when. And sometimes I get a little bit sad about that because I do love being human. I love being a mother. I love seeing other people shine from what I have to offer. I love how it invigorates and lights people up. That makes me happy. So yeah, I am gracefully reminded by the beauty that I witness that I won't be witnessing this forever. So I really enjoy the moments when I'm in it.
Do you have any questions for our audience to ponder on, not necessarily for them to answer right away, or Leo and I for that matter, that you'd like to leave them with?
I guess the question I would ask to you is, who are you? And do you remember who you are? I think that's something that we all explore. I think that's the ultimate question. Who am I? Go and find out.
I do have a couple inquiring questions that I want to start introducing in these interviews, and especially you being a person of sound and voice. In your experience and in your body, your heart and mind, what is a sound that brings utter joy to your presence?
Oh, a crying baby. I love the sound of a crying baby. Well, there was a time at about 2 a.m. in the morning, I wasn't really into it. I was like, no. But now that my children are grown, when I hear a baby crying, I just go, oh, just melts me. One, because I don't have to hear it all night, but once in a while it's really beautiful. But I hear life. I hear new life in that, in that sound. And the other sound that really gets me going is sounds of nature, all sounds of nature, but particularly our beautiful tohora, the sounds of our singing whales. It really shakes my core when I hear our whale songs coming every cycle. And we've been on beautiful whale journeys, and we're following the whale sanctuaries now, and we're going to be calling in people to come on a journey with us into whale sanctuaries, come and be in the sonics, and to learn wisdom and to activate your voice and to discover those types of things and empowerment, leadership. in whale sanctuaries around the world. I will be offering that in Tonga this year, and just to begin with my sister Anella, who's a star navigator of Hawaii, and carries a lot of Hawaiian voice of her ancestry and the chants that she carries. So that'll be a beautiful duo dynamic that we're offering. But I really feel like going into the sanctuaries of the world where the biggest mammals on the planet sing under the water in these highways that they travel. They sing and they go to these specific places on the planet and sing and sing and pulse in the water. And like, what is it about those specific places on the planet that has such a high frequency for them to want to go there? So that's really been something that's been on my mind since 2012 when I went on my first whale journey experience with Aboriginal elders in Australia. It's high frequency potent points like that on the planet that I particularly want to go into and attune my body and my soul, my spirit to. And I feel like, I want to support others to come on that journey as well. So yeah, that's one of my favorite sounds that I'm all about.
I'm so happy you acknowledge the whales, because clearly Hawaii, but Maui in general, or specifically, has that portal for the whales as well. Like there's definitely something there. If you even just swim 10 feet out and you dive under, you can clearly hear them during whale seasons. And
absolutely.
So you're right. There is some kind of frequency or energy that they're being drawn to. And with that acknowledgement that you're sharing, like I feel honored to even live on an island that has direct access to that. And remembering that they are also wisdom keepers and song sharers that we have a disconnect to at the moment. And for me, we went kayaking maybe like a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, and paddled out of Olowalu and just was very present to the sounds. With what you do enjoy in terms of sounds, I'd love to hear something that maybe triggers a dislike of a sound that is not necessarily that you hate, but it's like, oof, that brings something up in you as opposed to joy.
The voice of toxic humanity, to be honest. Like when there's always a way that we can communicate our discomfort to each other.
Yes.
But when it's given in such a way where it's like, it's not, it's more of a reaction and a quick fire off of words of like just that want to cut you just to hurt you because I'm hurting. That sound really, I just don't like that. I start to rise up and go, wait a minute, and then I go, okay, come on, take some practice. Come on, have a little bit of money here like this. Sometimes one of us, when we're communicating, has the skills and one of us doesn't.
Right.
So if you do, then try and dig deep a little bit on it and actually just go, okay, don't react, really try and think about what is the actual issue here, what's really wrong, where's the hurt, where we need to speak to it, and try and then just feed it back in a way where that maybe that person can understand without trying getting into a major screaming match or a debate, or this is a competition of, hang on, no, wait a minute, you hear me. No, wait a minute, you hear me. But when no one's listening, no one's listening and we're just kind of fighting for airspace. So I think when there's a way that you can actually use language to be able to kind of bridge a conversation into understanding and having compassion to try and help the understanding, I think that's where I'd rather it go. But when it comes firing at me, when it's like this, like I've got no, there's no skill there. It's just like an attack basically of words. I don't like that. That sound I don't like.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. All of that.
Yeah.
I feel pretty complete. If there's anything else you'd like to...
Thank you for inviting me into this space and just to share my voice and to share the stories of who we are together. It's really important that we take time out to share just to share a moment. I don't think we do it enough. I think we're too busy walking around, like
Mm-hmm.
taking care of business. We don't actually get down to listen to each other. So I really take these types of sharings to heart, because I just feel like it's a space where we can, like you said, unpack. And every time we do that, we just find a little deeper within ourselves. I think that's why it's really important that we have men's circles and women's circles, because we do have that space to unpack
Mm-hmm.
what's really weighing on our heart. And when we take these practices like podcasts and everything, I think it's a beautiful thing, because we get to just open and release. So
Mhm.
thank you for allowing me to share.
Absolutely. And thank you for answering the opportunity to sit with us. And it was an honor to share space with you last night. And I look forward to sharing more space with you in the future and this Sunday as we all gather for your last ceremony on island for the time being, as well as really excited for you because I can feel that this stop in Maui was just preparing you to launch into more magical opportunities for your voice to be heard and shared. And I really, really look forward to your return here to Maui and the ways we can support you in providing and creating space for more people to be impacted as much as we were impacted last night. And through this conversation, I feel such an honor to be able to be connected to you in this time and space and share our magic together and our stories. And I feel very inspired to stay in contact and get you back to Maui and other islands as well. There's definitely some potency brewing amongst this. And so thank you for allowing
Thank
this.
you. Mahalo. It's beautiful to be embracing our human
Mhm.
together, our humanness.
Also want to thank the Tipuna to get us together.
Mhm.
That we walked out of Whaia at the moment we did, and that they guided us to this
Right.
moment. And on your trip back here, even last night, you're like, what are you doing tomorrow?
I know,
Yeah,
right?
And to be that fluid in life, right?
Yes.
To be like the water and to be able to dance. And it was a real treat. I'm really happy that you got to join in on this and experience last night. It's really beautiful.
Why would you like to close it out with any chant or anything that feels called to be shared in this
Yeah,
moment
I
that we can lead
was.
out with? Yeah.
I like to just play an instrument.
Yes,
Ooh.
please.
Is that
Thank you.
okay?
Yeah,
Please.
please.
This is a beautiful taonga puro of my people, Māori people, and it's called a kawawa. So I made this one myself. The first one I was given about 14 years ago from my auntie Anihana, and as she was passing, that kawawa went back to Pele on a ceremonial walk that we were taking as elders. And so that signifies that I was meant to be starting to make my own too. So this one is based on a story of Kuruwaka and the creation story of our people from Aotearoa. So the story is that Tane, the god, was creating all life, and then he felt that there was something missing. So he went to his grandmother, Muriranga Whenua, and he asked her, there's something missing, grandmother. I'm not sure what it is. And she said to him, well, you need to go to Kuruwaka to find it. And Kuruwaka is the pubic region of our Papatuanuku, our Earth Mother. So there, when he journeyed there, he saw the sands and the clay. So he started to form a shape, and then he put this shape to his nose and he breathed life into it, and there formed the first human in creation. Her name was Hine Ahone, and she was a woman. So our culture is a very matriarchal culture, and also the significance of him breathing life into the clay is where our hongi comes from. When we touch our nose and our forehead to one another, we acknowledge the breath of life that we share. We acknowledge our pineal gland, our connection to our ancestral realm is always there with us and for us. E kawawa.
Well, on that note, we thank you for giving us your time and your attention to be with us here today, to receive whatever wisdom you needed to hear, whatever sound you needed to penetrate your being, and be the medicine for you from your tipunas and your journey. And again, thank you to Auntie Whaia for giving us your time and your attention and your wisdom and your medicine as well. And until next time, thank you for being part of the Embracing Human podcast. And we'll see you soon. Aloha. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the interview today. And if you haven't already done so, please like or follow us on whatever platform you're listening to, and let us know if you have any questions or comments or requests of future interviewees.
And we hope you find this inspiration, the clarity, and the direction to fully lean into being human, whatever that means for you. Aloha.